This week on Supercars Talk, it's Gen 3, Gen 3, and more Gen 3. Some eagle-eyed viewers would have noticed that last week I didn't mention the postponement of Winton. Fingers crossed it is only a postponement and I do get to go and see some live racing this year. We could be locked down in Melbourne, so forever, or Victoria, chances are I probably won't be able to travel anywhere else in the country to see any racing, even if it does happen elsewhere. Speaking of that, the Victorian teams have travelled up to New South Wales to do a 14-day quarantine before the Darwin round. They have had guarantees that they will be able to travel straight back to Victoria after Darwin, and it won't be a situation like last year where they are on the road for, it was over 100 days, I think, in the end last year. So essentially the teams will travel back to Melbourne. And if the situation gets worse in Melbourne, I can't see that happening. It is getting better at the moment. I don't think this is going to be a super long lockdown for us. You never know with this thing, but basically, if the situation gets worse in Melbourne, they won't be travelling to Townsville, I guess. In other non-Gen 3 related news this week, the rumour that's kind of been kicking around for quite a while is that Alex Davison has been confirmed as Scott Mclaughlin's replacement if Scott cannot get across to race the number 17 at Bathurst. Surprise, surprise, it'll be a Davison brothers team, although they have not confirmed that. Pretty much it's going to be the Davison brothers in 17, and Tony D'Alberto will pair up with Anton De Pasquale in the number 11. Now, for the topic that is on everybody's lips at the moment, Gen 3. Okay, it came out this week that the introduction has been postponed until August 2022. I'm a little bit surprised by this, and although it didn't come out in the release, was that it will be a full rollout. Everybody will have to have the car from August. That hasn't actually been confirmed, but we can only assume that that's why they're delaying it until August, so that everybody can be ready for the rollout at that point. And that means you don't have to worry about any parity kind of stuff. It does raise some questions with teams selling cars and things like that. Some of the cars are probably already sold. And then you also wonder, will Super 2 be in a position to run Gen 3 from the start of 2023? And then all of a sudden you have, a glut of Gen 2 cars that are ready to be sold in August 2022 that you can't filter down to Gen 3. But it would make sense to kind of get Super 2 converted over to Gen 3 as quick as possible, so that they're all running the same equipment, and it is cheaper for the Super 2 teams to run during the year. There are also some questions there as well with not so much for Tickford, I suppose, because they've already got the cars sat there ready to go with the extra license. Not such a big one for them, and to then have an extra car ready over that period of time, not such a big stress. Probably more questions on the Matt Stone Racing side. Their chances are they're going to have a third license next year, so they've got to get an extra Gen 2 car up and running or will they have to get an extra Gen, or can they start running their third car from August with the Gen 3 rollout? And then also, they're doing the switch over from GM to Ford. Although you could say, well, Matt Stone did make a switch mid-season before. But that is an interesting one. I cannot think of a time where, we've had plenty of switches over the off season where people have gone from, Nissan to Ford or Ford to Holden, Holden to Ford, things like that, Ford to Mercedes, Holden to Volvo, Volvo to Holden. But actually during the season, other than the Matt Stone Racing switch, I can't think of a time where people have actually swapped manufacturers, and funnily enough, it's going to be Matt Stone Racing again, switching from the Commodore to the Gen 3 Mustang mid-season. A couple of other points with Gen 3. They are supposed to be beginning testing of the two prototypes in August of this year. That would, if a problem came up in testing, that's probably why they're giving it 12 months. They did say that it was due to challenges with international supply chains. Not that we've left the run too late. The key is, though, with this switch to Gen 3 over the Gen 2 stuff, because most of the car is going to be control components, all the same kind of kit in them, that if they have an issue on the test cars, well, you fix it on the test car. It's not like you've got, AAA, Brad Jones Racing, Walkinshaw and all that running different parts, and then all of a sudden you have trouble with one of those parts and, you got to go and redesign it because there was something unforeseen. Really, as long as everything works on the test car, it's going to work for all of the teams because they've all got the same parts. And as I've explained before as well, it's not as big a shift, say, from the old Blueprint car, Project Blueprint, over to Car of the Future was a fairly sizable shift, where this from Gen 2 to Gen 3 is a bit more of an evolution rather than revolution change. Also, the Aero Kits are going to be designed by one company. I forget the name of the company. It is a British-based company. And thank God for that, because they should be able to design them so that they are the same, rather than having, Triple Eight going off and designing the Commodore Aero Kit and then essentially telling Penske, oh, well, you should do a better job of it. And then, Penske doing what Penske does best and just pushing the boundaries to the absolute limit. And then we shouldn't have any parity problems. It should all be a pretty straight forward thing. Should be. The engines as well, it looks like there will be different size engines. Ford's pretty much locked into running the 5.4, I think it's the Coyote engine. There's still a little bit of question whether it's going to be kind of an LS1 based 5.7 in the Camaro or the 6.2 LS3 base. Maybe they're looking somewhere else for that. Something we probably, as fans, don't want to hear, but it's looking like your pedal shifters and your auto blip and all that is going to happen, because the teams are saying, oh, it's a cost-saving thing because then we cannot have human error and it means that the engines will last longer and blah, blah, blah. It also takes away a bit from the show. Not so much that, click, click, click on the back of the steering wheel is, there's less visual there to, punching on a gear stick. What I liked about the old H patterns and that was that, there's a bit of challenge to it. I'd have to admit, even, I've never, drag raced anyone off the lights in any of my cars, but I know in my old, 6-speed manuals and that, you could bugger it up. You could misshift and go, first to fourth or something like that. I did have a real interesting one day where I went to slot from, I think, fifth into fourth in the wet and went a bit too far over and got second, and massive compression lock in the wet, and you can imagine the kind of speeds I was doing if I was going from fifth to fourth to slow down, and backed it into second. That got the heart pumping, but you could have those mistakes. I have an automatic now because we nearly have no choice in this country with manuals. It was very, very limited. I wasn't really going to get a Mustang due to practicalities. So, I was pretty much stuck getting an auto, and there's no chance of doing an error on there, even if I got clickies on the back of the steering wheel that there's no chance of human error, so it just takes away a bit of that, a bit of difference. Like, the cream will always rise to the top, but it means that your Jack Smiths are going to be closer to your Shane Van Gisbergens. The final little bit of Gen 3 news this week is that Erebus has committed to the Camaro. Surprise, surprise. I'll put the picture up there. It looks really good in the Boost livery. That looks much better than what the Boost Mustang currently looks this year. Just shows you what a good job they did on that paint job this year. So that's my Gen 3 centric video for this week. One little side note is that it's been confirmed Triple Eight they will be the inside line team for this year. They've said they, access all areas. Nothing's off limits. Walkinshaw Andretti United was the inside line team last year. That's the thing that Erebus did back in 2019, where it came out last year. Barry Ryan was made to look like the villain. He did a pretty good job of it. I just wonder who is going to be the villain or scapegoat from Walkinshaw Andretti. And then, at Triple Eight, is Dutto going to be made out to be a villain, or, creative editing to make it look worse than what it is? Who knows? Will everyone vilify, Triple Eight the way that splits the fan base? I'm sure it won't be a hard thing for them to find a villain within that team. That's it for this week. I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.